smells pretty good, but I haven't lit it yet. So I guess I'll find out. Are you ready for some creepy stories today? Are you ready for some creepy stories today? I am a picky person when it comes to choosing stories that I want to read. I like stories that are well written and somewhat believable. Like if it even has a smidgen of being plausible or possible, then I will consider reading it on my channel. So today I have chosen 3 stories that I think are creepy and believable, and then I also have a 4th story that someone emailed me that I think is creepy as well, and I would love for you to hear it. This first story is called Where is Henrietta? When I was 8 years old, my family moved into a lower income part of town. The good thing about it was my aunt and older brother lived in the same neighborhood as us. There was an old small building from what I'm told was a church. I used to come here to play a lot as I didn't have many friends. My father kept my family isolated a majority of my life. There was a girl who used to always come and play with me. Before you ask me, no, she was not a ghost. Her name was Henrietta. I always liked Henrietta. We always played together. She was like the best friend I'd ever have, considering I hadn't had any. Henrietta's family stayed about 2 houses down from an older man named Mr. Herbert. I'd say maybe he was in his early 40s during this time. He was always very creepy looking at me. He would always stare at me and Henrietta through his bushes, or he'd be peeking out the window at us. Mr. Herbert gave me the worst feeling ever. I used to tell Henrietta not to talk to him because he seemed like he was kind of weird, but she always, as a child, tried to see the good in people. But I just couldn't shake the feeling of something sinister about him. I remember one night looking out my bedroom window and seeing him across the street in the bushes, just staring at my house. I closed the curtain for what seemed like 10 minutes, and when I opened the curtains back up, he was walking through the field back to his house. The next morning, the police were everywhere. Seems like Henrietta had went missing and no one could find her. I remember her parents being really hysterical about it because Henrietta was their only child. Because I was her friend at the time, the police, along with my parents, went to the station, and I told them I'd last seen Henrietta at the old church we'd played at. I was heading home, and she said she was waiting on a great friend to come by with candy. I had no clue who she was talking about, but I did mention creepy neighbor Mr. Herbert, how he was always following us and staring at us and had made some comments about our body. My parents told me to stop telling stories, as they call it. Anyways, they apparently ruled Mr. Herbert out as a suspect. a shallow grave. Mr. Herbert had violated her, then murdered her. He buried her beneath the old church floor. Apparently, he was wanted in other places as well. The police said he had a list of young girls he was going to kill or had already killed. He marked them out after each death. The police say he had my photo and my name in a list. I was after Henrietta on the list. Apparently, he was going to kill me next at some point. They ended up giving him life with no parole, and he is currently still incarcerated. Every time I think of what happened, I get the chills because it could have been me next. That is the end of that story. I actually tried to look up a Mr. Herbert who had been incarcerated for murdering women, and I don't think I was able to find him. I found another serial killer named Herbert, or with the last name Herbert. I'm not sure if it was the same one, but the story is very creepy and very, very sad. I hope it's not true, but if it is, I'm glad that he is in prison, at least. Okay, so for the second creepy story, I decided to wear a giant necklace today. Okay, so this next creepy story is called I just started a job at a bank, which was originally a government building, then a Civil War hospital. So, I've had a few paranormal experiences in my life thus far. Some frightening stuff, but nothing that was actually dangerous in retrospect. I recently started a security job in a bank. I work overnight and monitor the entirety of the building's interior, as well as patrols of the exterior. The building is 6 stories, with only the bottom one actually being the functional bank. The upper floors are mainly untouched, outdated offices, with a few being rented by businesses. No one whatsoever is in the building of the nighttime, and surveillance doesn't cover the upper floors because they're so well separated from the bank. While doing my rounds of the upper levels and checking every unlocked room, i.e. bathrooms, closets, mechanical rooms, storage spaces, stairwells, the whole 9 yards, I didn't find anything as usual. But, while I was on the 4th floor, I heard someone call my name, and I heard a door close. Of course, I was freaked out, but I pushed through the fear and tried to stay rational. I did a second sweep of the floor, and again, nothing. Then I got really scared. I got to the stairwell on that floor and opened the door to listen. Stairwells echo really badly, so we're taught to be silent and listen for intruders. While I'm standing there, head peeked through the door, I don't hear anything. Until I do. 2 men's voices came from the stairwell. I'm assuming up it. I announced myself and started going up, but found nothing and didn't hear any doors open or close, which I should have. Then I'm at the last flight up to the roof, and I hear loud footsteps running up the stairs. I am absolutely terrified and prepare myself for a physical altercation. Weapon at the ready, I wait for the perp to come to me because I'm on high ground. The steps sound close enough that I should be able to see the person causing them, but I don't. Then I hear labored breathing with the steps, and I still see nothing. sounds continue to the roof of the door, and to my shock, it opens with a bang and then shuts. I actually saw it open and shut. It's normally locked, so I go to secure it and call the cops. But when I get to it, it's locked. I have absolutely no explanation for this. I have never been pushed or physically touched by an entity, and I am shaken so badly. On top of this, the next night, I'm sitting in the lobby with the elevators behind me. Again, no one in the building. I hear the outdated elevator go up some floors, stop, and shift with weight entering it, then come back down. I am absolutely terrified as it touched down and the doors open. No one in sight, but when I get up to look closer, steps pound toward me, push me over, then run up the stairwell adjacent to the elevator. I am terrified of this building. I'm the first female guard they've hired. The men I've spoken to don't experience anything. It pays too good to quit, but I'm at a loss of what to do. And that is the end of this woman's short story. Girl, if you feel like you're not safe, I think she should switch jobs. But I know that's easier said than done. But I mean, if you got invisible people pushing you at your job, I guess, I don't know. Hopefully she fights back at the very least, yells at them so they stop. Can't take advantage of the new employee. Someone commented and said, if you are really nervous, firmly tell them that they are not welcome to bother you and you want them to leave you alone. That's what I think. If she's not going to switch jobs, she should yell at them. See what happens. I will keep you updated if this person posts any more stories about their job. Okay, third story. I missed filming. It's been about 5 weeks since I've sat down and just hit record on my phone. I'm excited to be back and excited to be reading more creepy stories again. I kept telling myself to just record, but I just got caught up in life, you know. Sometimes that happens. But hopefully I can be back on the map and making videos consistently again. This third story is called Close Call, Pervert in My House. I was a pretty and relatively smart 15-year-old girl. A good kid who did well in school despite a tough childhood. I was working at an amusement park full-time during the summer. The area I lived in could be sketchy, but having grown up with little to no adult supervision, I was used to trying to look out for myself. My father was out of town, mother was long out of the picture, and my sister, 3 years older, and myself were staying at our home alone. I finished work at 11 p.m. when the park closed and walked myself home by myself as I usually did. It wasn't far, perhaps 10 minutes. I arrived home. My sister was still out somewhere, and I got ready for bed, putting my pajamas on and crawled into bed. I was starting to fall asleep, but I heard a small noise. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't seem like a usual house noise. My bedroom was on the second floor with stairs leading up. I didn't hear anything after that noise, didn't investigate, just chalked it up to nothing. I started to fall back asleep when I heard what sounded like hesitant footsteps on the stairs. I was instantly awake, but in my mind it was my sister coming home and climbing the stairs where her bedroom was. Still in bed, I yelled out, "Wendy, Wendy, is that you?" I heard nothing back. I yelled again, "Wendy, is that you?" terrified, but as I tell the story to this day, I don't understand some of my reactions that night, so I really can't explain them. I got out of bed, opened the ajar bedroom door fully, and went out to the stairs, where I stood at the top. Below me, about halfway up the stairs, was a man I had never seen before. He looked to be early 20s, a little taller than my 5'7", not a big guy, but solid, with blonde, curly hair. I asked him what he was doing. His reply was a garbled mess, something like, "Where's Wendy? My mother told me not to get mixed up with women. Where's Wendy?" From his manner and wild-eyed look, he seemed like he may have been on drugs. He had followed me home from the park and was asking, "Where's Wendy?" in response to my calling out for her. For some reason, I got very angry, not just scared, and started screaming at him to get out of the house, that I was going to call my father and Wendy, and he needed to just get out. To my surprise, he did. He turned around, ran back down the stairs, and I didn't see where he went after that. But it turns out he must have left. I have no idea how he got into my house, but he was definitely there to see me. That's why he followed me, not burglary or anything else. He was looking to rape and who knows what else. I think the only reason he left was because he had no idea where my sister Wendy was. He probably thought she was in the house, and it was an added complication to him getting caught. I was so shaken, I stayed up the rest of the night. I didn't call the cops, didn't call a friend. The only person I told was my sister the next day. I don't know why. I just sat in a rocking chair clutching my cat and rocking and crying, staying awake till the next morning. My sister never did come home that night. She stayed at friends and came home the next day. This happened 35 years ago. I never told anybody until now. Dun dun dun. That's terrifying. I love her reaction though, rather than getting scared and running or crying and bleeding or whatever. She got angry and yelled for him to get the fuck out. And it worked, so I'm glad she's safe and like she can live to tell the tale. And hopefully that fucker never did that again. We can only hope, right? So, this fourth story was emailed to me from a subscriber. I am not going to say her name, but I'm really grateful that she messaged me on Instagram and then emailed me her story. This story is called Simon. This story starts when I was around 3 or 4. Growing up, money was relatively tight. We had enough to eat and pay the bills, and that was about it. So I didn't have many toys to play with at all. When I was 3, my mom gave birth to my brother, who I'll call Michael for the story. We lived in this old house. It wasn't anything fancy, but I remember it being huge, although that could have just been my age at the time. And I mentioned toys earlier because I remember I would make my own toys out of cardboard and just basically anything recyclable laying around the house. I had what you would call a creative imagination when I was small, and I started to develop a relationship with Simon. Simon was real to me, as real as two people having a conversation in the street, but to my mom, dad, and everyone else, he wasn't there. I was seemingly talking to myself. I remember him well though, even as I'm typing this. He was short. He had black hair, a Star Wars shirt on with blue long sleeves. He wore denim trousers that were too big for him, and he was a child. I think a little older than me at that time, maybe 5 or 6. I would play with him all the time, according to my mom, who found the whole thing to be very strange. But she liked my imagination, so she didn't mind. After all, I was small. Anyway, I grew up, and I'm about 6 or 7, and my brother was now 3 or 4. Michael didn't speak much at all until he was about 3. He could say basic words and some phrases, but that's about it. One day, as we were eating, he announces to the family that Simon plays with me now. You must bear in mind I'm 7 and hadn't played with Simon for years, nor did Michael really even know about him. My mom reminded me of this weird scenario about a year ago, and I'm now 18. We have moved houses several times in my lifetime due to financial struggles. After she told me, I decided to ask my brother about it. He was in his room playing his Xbox. This is how the conversation went. Michael, do you remember Simon? Michael replied, You mean from our old house? Yeah, do you remember him? Like what he looked like? And I kid you not, the exact description I gave you of Simon was the one my brother gave me. I remember the shivers that went down my spine as he was talking. To this day, I don't know what me and Michael encountered in the house, but I feel in some way we are both connected to Simon. And that is the end of that short story. But really, it is a coincidence that you and your brother would see the exact same entity when you're about 3 years old. It's very interesting, and to be able to remember him vividly as well is pretty unusual. My memory from when I was 3 and 4 is very, very hazy. I only remember bits and pieces, and I don't remember the details of what people were wearing back then. But this was a really interesting story. If you ever have a kid or your brother ever has a kid, I know you guys aren't in the same house anymore, but it would be crazy if they had a friend named Simon.